In our headlines on this Monday, December 23rd, here in South Korea. The Constitutional Court will hold its first preparatory hearing for President Yoon's impeachment trial this coming Friday as planned, deeming that legal documents delivered to him by post have been received. Meanwhile, the Special Investigation Team is analyzing President Yoon's private cell phone records, having obtained them as part of its probe into his declaration of martial law on the night of December 3rd. And first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-yoon is in Washington to sit down with the outgoing Biden administration, while Shinsegae Group Chairman Chung Yong-jin was in Florida to speak with incoming President Donald Trump. The Constitutional Court says it will deem its legal documents delivered to the president following multiple rejections by his security team to accept the papers on his behalf. Oh Seong has our top story.
The Constitutional Court has decided to move ahead with impeachment trial proceedings for President Yoon, as the leader has not accepted nor responded to court documents sent to him over the past week. On Monday, the court announced that it would consider December 19th as the date it sent official documents to Yoon's residence, adding the 7-day deadline for his response would have been effective from the 20th upon the deemed delivery. The court also plans to proceed as planned with the first preparatory hearing on Friday, to gather and review materials and arguments from Yoon and the National Assembly, which voted to remove him from office over his imposition of martial law. Around 7 documents were sent, including the notice of receipt, a request for Yoon's response, the impeachment resolution, as well as the notification, attendance request, and the order for preparation.
The effectiveness of delivery is established when the legal documents reach the designated place, as per Supreme Court Precedent 98-53. Therefore, the effectiveness remains valid even if the documents are not actually received.
After being suspended from his duties, the leader is believed to be remaining at his residence. However, he has so far turned away at least 11 attempts to deliver court papers. Guards at his residence have reportedly refused to take mail on Yoon's behalf, and his office returned the post, saying he was unavailable. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a president facing impeachment has not accepted documents from court. In contrast, former President Roh Moo-hyun received impeachment papers the day after Parliament's vote in 2004, and former President Park Geun-hye received them on the same day of her impeachment in 2016.
While the court will continue with its proceedings as planned, it's unclear whether Yoon will respond within the 7-day deadline effective from the day of receiving documents. As of Monday, court officials say there has been no response from the president.
It's unlikely that Yoon himself would attend the first preparatory trial. Meanwhile, the National Assembly seems close to finalizing a legal team ahead of Friday's hearing. However, there are concerns the trial could face delays, deliberately or otherwise, if President Yoon's side fails to appoint legal representatives, refuses to attend, or claims more time is needed to review the documents. As of now, Yoon has not fully formed his legal team. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, authorities are analyzing the president's private cell phone records, having obtained them as part of their probe into his declaration of martial law on the night of December 3rd. Our Park Geon-woo has the latest.
The special team investigating the declaration of martial law in early December has secured the call logs from President Yoon's personal cell phone. According to police officials on Sunday, investigators obtained a warrant for Yoon's phone to check details of calls with individuals related to the martial law order. Officials added they are also trying to find a separate secure phone known to have been used by Yoon to give orders during the period of martial law, along with his logs. The police also said a document containing orders to stop funding for the National Assembly's operations and organize the legislative body's budget under martial law has been obtained. The document was reportedly delivered to Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok during a cabinet meeting held before the temporary imposition of martial law. But Choi said last week that he does not recall much about the document.
It seemed like measures based on martial law. As soon as I saw it, we decided to ignore it and dismissed it.
After investigating 10 out of the 12 participants in the cabinet meeting held before martial law was declared, police officials said they concluded there were procedural and substantive flaws in the meeting. That's based on factors including the absence of meeting minutes. The prosecutor's office also investigated the Korea Defense Intelligence Command last week, amid suspicions that personnel from the headquarters of Intelligence Detachment were deployed to arrest National Election Commission staff during the martial law period. Prosecutors have secured testimonies from KDIC staff. The joint investigation team, consisting of the police, defense ministry, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials last Friday, issued a second summons for President Yoon to appear for questioning this Wednesday. The first summons issued last Wednesday by the CIO went unanswered. The CIO plans to seek an arrest warrant for Yoon if he does not respond to the latest summons, or if he does not give a specific reason for failing to appear before investigators on Wednesday. 박건우, Arirang News.
And at the National Assembly, lawmakers across the aisle have agreed to launch a bipartisan body with the government for talks on state affairs, including public livelihood. Our correspondent Ishihu reports.
After more than a week of back and forth, the rival parties at the National Assembly agreed Monday to launch a joint consultative body between the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party and the government to discuss current state affairs and measures to improve people's livelihoods. PPP's acting chairman and floor leader Kwon Sung-dong and the DP's floor leader Park Chan-dae, in their talks presided over by National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, decided to hold the first meeting this Thursday on the 26th. It's expected that the party leaders, either Kwon or a soon-to-be-chosen leader of its Emergency Leadership Committee for the PPP and Lee Jae-myung for the DP, will start off the conversations. And the party's respective floor leaders will lead more practical discussions afterward. For the time being, the two are fine-tuning details on the specifics of the joint talk, narrowing down its agendas and goals. Meanwhile, further push on Monday from the opposition lawmakers at the National Assembly to facilitate the impeachment process against President Yoon Suk-yeol. The National Assembly's Special Committee on the Nomination of Constitutional Justices held scheduled hearings on two nominees, Ma Eun-hyuk and Jung Kae-sun, as recommended by the opposition blocs to join the Constitutional Court of Korea. This is an effort mainly by the main opposition DP along with other minor oppositions to fill the 3 empty seats at what is supposed to be a 9-member court, which will make the final decision on Yoon's impeachment. But the ruling PPP continues to argue that the nominees, even if confirmed for nomination by the National Assembly, cannot be appointed by an acting president who does not hold the same authority. The PPP members of the special committee refused to take part during the hearings. The party says if the National Assembly's nominations do go through, it will go as far as to challenge the nomination by filing an official jurisdiction of the dispute to the Constitutional Court. By law, 3 constitutional justices are selected by the National Assembly and appointed by the president. The opposition plans to hold another hearing on Tuesday to question the 3rd nominee, Cho Han-chang, recommended by the ruling party, and get all 3 nominations approved by the whole assembly at a plenary session as early as this Thursday. The rival parties have agreed to hold 2 more plenary sessions by the end of the year on the 26th and 31st, but the DP is pushing for 2 additional meetings before and after the dates, and 2 more in early January to take care of business during what they call an emergency situation, while the PPP says such is unnecessary. 이시후, Arirang News. In other news, first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is in Washington to sit down with the outgoing Biden administration, while Shinsegae Group Chairman Chung Yong-jin was in Florida to speak with the incoming President Donald Trump. Our Lee Sing-jae has more.
South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is visiting the United States for talks with the outgoing Biden administration as Seoul prepares for the incoming Trump administration. Talking to reporters at Dulles International Airport on Sunday, Kim said the Yoon administration has been communicating with the Trump team since before the U.S. presidential election. He added that the administration has explained the situation in South Korea, including the emergency martial law incident and the current impeachment proceeding against President Yoon Suk-yeol. When asked how Trump's team perceives the situation in South Korea, Kim said that as the whole world has witnessed, South Korea's democracy has shown how resilient it is, adding that they'll clearly understand the situation. The South Korean envoy explained that there are no plans to meet with anyone from the Trump side during his visit. Meanwhile, South Korean retail conglomerate Shinsegae Group chairman Jung Yong-jin said Saturday that he had a brief talk with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Speaking to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Jung said he spoke to Trump for around 10 to 15 minutes. While Jung was tight-lipped about his meeting with Trump, he explained that Trump's team showed interest in the current situation in South Korea.
Korea is a country with potential, so please trust and wait. We will quickly return to normal. That's all I said.
His brief meeting with the U.S. President-elect came as he stayed at Mar-a-Lago Resort at the invitation of Donald Trump Jr. The SSG chairman is the first South Korean known to have met Trump since his win in November. Jung refrained from further disclosing the details of his talk with Trump, but said the U.S. President-elect made no special indication towards South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Top diplomats of South Korea and Japan spoke on the phone early on this Monday for the second time since the country's brief imposition of martial law earlier this month. Now, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il reassured his Japanese counterpart Takeshi Iwaya about the stability of state affairs within national borders amid the efforts of the acting president. The two officials also reaffirmed their commitment to close coordination and to their trilateral cooperation with the U.S. to address North Korea's provocations. Seoul and Tokyo are poised to celebrate 60 years of diplomatic relations next year. A third homegrown South Korean spy satellite has been placed into orbit from a U.S. space center this past weekend. Now, this latest mission comes as part of Seoul's plans to have 5 such satellites in space by the year 2025. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
The country's third military reconnaissance satellite was successfully lifted into space on Saturday night, Korea time. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying the domestically developed satellite was launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The satellite succeeded in communicating with the ground station shortly after entering orbit.
The third reconnaissance satellite successfully communicated with the domestic ground station, confirming that the satellite was in good working order.
The launch follows 2 successful liftoffs in December 2023 and a second one in April this year. The latest launch is part of South Korea's plan to deploy 5 spy satellites by 2025 to monitor the North with its homegrown satellite network. Once all 5 satellites have been placed in orbit, the military will be able to monitor a specific North Korean target every 2 hours.
We will be able to monitor North Korea dozens of times a day. When the military's 4th and 5th reconnaissance satellites and microsatellite systems are launched in the future.
The satellites are capable of capturing images day and night, regardless of weather. The third satellite will go through operational testing over the next few months before carrying out surveillance and reconnaissance missions. Meanwhile, North Korea had announced that it would launch 3 reconnaissance satellites this year, but the South's military assessed that seems unlikely based on the current trends. The regime attempted to launch its second reconnaissance satellite back in May, but failed. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has reaffirmed intentions to put a quick end to Russia's war against Ukraine, adding that Vladimir Putin has voiced interest in a meeting in the near future. Yoon-jin has details.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said on Sunday that Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed interest in meeting with him as soon as possible, and added that the horrible war needed to end. This was during his speech at America Fest, a political festival for conservatives put on by conservative nonprofit Turning Point. It was his first rally-style speech since winning the election. Touting his transition efforts at the event, Trump also reiterated that had he been in power, the war in Ukraine would not have happened. During his election campaign, Trump had claimed he could resolve the war in just one day. And recently, the president-elect has also stated that upon taking office, Ukraine would possibly receive less military aid from the U.S. During his annual end-of-year press conference on Thursday, Putin had expressed his readiness to meet with Trump. And in an interview with Russian journalists on Sunday, when asked about the possibility of improving relations with the United States, Putin said everything can be done if there is a desire, adding that Russia had never lost that desire. But Putin emphasized that while Russia is ready to find compromises, it would not be to the detriment of the interests of the Russian state, which he said holds true for all relations with foreign countries. Meanwhile, Putin hosted a meeting with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico on Sunday, who arrived in Moscow on a surprise working visit. The one-on-one meeting focused on the international situation of the Ukraine war, as well as supplies of Russian gas to Slovakia. Fico has been a vocal critic against the European Union's support for Kiev in the war. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated at a summit in Brussels last week that he had no intention of renewing a deal allowing for Russian gas to transit to Slovakia through Ukraine. The 5-year agreement signed before the war is due to expire at the end of this year. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, back on the local front, semiconductor shipments overseas have been driving up exports this month. According to the Korea Customs Service on this Monday, chip exports amounted to $40.3 billion during the first 20 days of December, up 6.8% on year. Overseas shipments of semiconductors alone rose 23%. Korea's exports have been expanding for 14 months in a row up until November, but the rate of rise has been slowing since August. And the government is poised to inject an additional 300 billion won value-up fund to stabilize the local stock market. Intentions to this end were shared by Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok on this Monday at an economic meeting to address fluctuations in the market that have been aggravated by the political instability here at home. Officials also touched upon boosting foreign exchange liquidity with measures such as raising the forex forward position limit and expanding forex swaps with the National Pension Service within the month. Restrictions on foreign currency loans for domestic use will also be eased by the end of next month. And electricity rates will be frozen at 5 Korean won per kilowatt hour during the first quarter of 2025. Now, this is according to the Korea Electric Power Corporation as it plans to maintain the adjusted unit fuel cost, which has been in place since the third quarter of 2022. Back in October, KEPCO decided to raise the electricity rate for industrial use by 9.7%, while those for households and small stores were left unchanged. K-pop boy band Stray Kids topped the BIllboard 200 albums chart for the 6th time with the new album Hop. The album debuted at #1, making it the group's 6th album in a row to debut at #1 on the main albums chart. No act has debuted at #1 with its first 6 chart entries in BIllboard's near 69-year history. Stray Kids is now tied with BTS, Linkin Park, and Dave Matthews Band for the most #1 albums on the Billboard 200 chart since the year 2000. Members of Stray Kids, for their part, have thanked their fans for the honor.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Police investigations are in full swing following Friday evening's horrific attack in the German city of Magdeburg. The suspect, who was identified by the German authorities as a 50-year-old Saudi doctor, has been remanded in custody after allegedly killing 4 women and a 9-year-old boy and injuring some 200 more by driving a car into crowds at a Christmas market. The suspect, who has been named as Taleb al-Abdul Mohsen in the local media, was brought before a judge on Saturday evening and ordered to a pre-trial detention for 5 counts of murder, multiple attempted murder, and multiple counts of dangerous bodily harm. German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said investigations would look into how authorities responded to early warnings, such as online death threats made by the suspect and information given by the Saudi government, which was apparently ignored by its German counterpart. Al-Abdul Mohsen was granted asylum by Germany in 2016 after arriving in the country in 2006. Now, according to his social media account, he supported anti-Islam views and far-right political parties. Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Serbia's capital Belgrade on Sunday in a move against President Aleksandar Vučić and his ruling Serbian Progressive Party, demanding the government's accountability over the collapse of a railway station roof last month that killed 15 people. Following the collapse of the recently renovated roof of Novi Sad station on November 1st, opposition leaders and members of the public blamed government corruption and nepotism. Now, Novi Sad station had been renovated twice in recent years in large-scale projects involving Chinese state companies. Prosecutors have so far arrested 13 people over the collapse, including a government minister, after Vučić said he will hold those responsible to account. Spain's traditional Christmas lottery, El Gordo de la Primitiva, with the world's largest total prize pot of some $2.8 billion, announced its winning numbers in a broadcast on Sunday. As per tradition, the lottery draw was televised in a 4-hour broadcast from Madrid's Teatro Real, where students from San Ildefonso School picked the winning numbers and sang them out. The tradition, which dates back over 200 years to 1812, began as a way to raise funds to fight for Spain's independence against the occupying French forces. Nowadays, the remaining proceeds, after payouts to lucky winners, are donated to social causes. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
Not as much as yesterday, but it is freezing today as well. Seoul rose up to 6 degrees Celsius, but the feels-like temperature remained at around 3 degrees. As the weather continues to be colder than usual until Christmas morning, please dress extra warm. Currently, cold wave advisories are issued in northeastern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province, western parts of Gangwon-do Province, northern parts of Chungcheongbuk-do Province, and northern parts of Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Also, cold wave warnings are in place in Yeoncheon in Gyeonggi-do Province, and Cheoran and Yanggu in Gangwon-do Province. This cold wave will ease off a bit on Christmas Day, but will make a return on Friday. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve will start off at below 0 degrees in most parts of the country. Chuncheon minus 12 degrees, Daegu minus 2 degrees. Highs will move up to 3 degrees in Seoul, Busan and Jeju 10 degrees. On Christmas Day, only lots of clouds are expected without any news of snow. It will be difficult to expect a white Christmas. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. We return with our panel session in a few minutes.